Okay, here's a look at the markets for Monday, January the 23rd, 2017. A little bit of a dip here in the overnight market, Sunday evening heading into Monday in the E-mini S&P. You can see that when the European session started, it did have a dip down but stopped just right about our support in the 58 area of the overlay, and then came up, rejected this, traded above it, had a nice vertical here, and really that's what kept the market contained for the rest of the trading session. So we did still have our resistance up in this area, and obviously our support still roughly in the 58. So no big change there, still holding within the containment area. You can see here on the daily chart that we did dip down, and we're going to have to break here, obviously, at some point. Who knows when, but we've had this movement here, and then the test down that uh, immediately came back up, and now we've got more of this. We did have a bit of a dip here, a bit of a dip here, but we just can't seem to get down. You would think that if the sellers wanted to come in and start to really push it down, at least get back down to the 28 area. We have, I think the low was like, what was it, 49 or something like that on this day here. So we just can't seem to get down. Um, Anywhere near the 228. So we've got our high here at 2277, and this is at 2273. We got right back up to that late last week. So it seems to me the market's likely to want to go back up there. It doesn't appear to me that this kind of rejection from here um, is a good one. I mean, it could be, but I don't think it is. I think we need to go back up and retest this area here and really, get a good movement up that then gets rejected or whatever, or just continues up, I mean, but we get all this sideways movement here. Yes, it could come back down, and as I said, it just doesn't seem to want to. So I think we got to get back up there and give that a nice test. Now you can see here that when we did open, it was within that area, as I mentioned. We opened about here, went up and tested right to the top of that value area high. This is the overlay. Came down and tested the bottom of it, all within the first hour of trading, as you can see right here. But then we did have a good movement. We did stay below that 58 area for a good hunk of time, getting down into 52 area. We had about a 10-point rally to finish the day, so right back into our comfort zone again, as you can see here, which still is roughly 58 to 68. We close at 62 here. So, we're just going sideways here, obviously, and I think the inability of the market to once again hold below, in this case, the 58 area here, obviously gave it a good shot, spent quite a bit of time here, but came right back up and had a good rally. It seems to me that, when you get this kind of rejection from here, as we did when the market did it this other time, it's going to go back up, and I really think it's likely to hit up here in that 74 area pretty darn soon. I mean that's my take on it at this stage of the game, but if it comes back down and does this again and comes through, then we could have the move down here, to the 42 roughly, and the 28. So I mean, it's still a possibility. It just seems that every time it gets down there, the longer time frame buyer, just kind of steps in and sends that market right back up. So, here's the 58 area here, started here, had the pop up close to the 68 here, and it started to sell off. We have a level 2 here. Now, we did have some follow through on that level 2 on the way up, but couldn't get above 68. And so we know that this is a tough area for the buyers to move above. Let's call it 66 to 68. Let's call this one 58 to 60. So when it gets, up into this area in here, this is a resistance area, and this is a support area. Well, you can see here, not much of a bounce here, and then we held below, and then another leg down. Continue to hold below, another leg down. Now, what was different here, when this high of this magenta got taken out, unlike this one, where taking that out was back in near the resistance area, or former barrier, I should say, now resistance, previously support. We had this high velocity move, and it moved above this magenta here, and held above it. and then we came up here, tested into this area. We actually had very strong buying here as the market sped through these interrange high fractals, and then came back down and tested the bottom of it. Actually, the bottom came in right here on today, and then made its way back up. So, when we get these high velocity moves, we know that they tend to be beginnings or ends of intraday auctions. And certainly this one that formed down here was the start of an intraday auction up. And the second one here did come down, as I said, test the low of it. Actually tried to move below it, which is, really when a market is and you can actually take a look here at the low of this high velocity move and say to yourself, that's where the support should be. Well, if it moves a little bit below it, but doesn't move below where the last dip came in, then this is really a failure on the part of the sellers to try and move it lower. And when you get failure, when is the failure defined? Well, or what confirmed, I should say. Well, I think it's not really confirmed till it takes this out, in my view. But another way to look at it too is when it gets above this area. Right, so which it did here, and then finished up higher. So we got some support in here for tomorrow. We had some opportunities today on the short side, especially once the market had held in this time frame nicely below the previous 58. Came up here and tested, had a nice leg down. Getting pretty messy on the chart here, so let me just clean that up. So there were some opportunities today. And certainly this 56 area is an area to monitor for support. And then, of course, today's low down there at 51.75. Where this buying came in early today, though, this is a concern for buyers because that's at 66. So, I think that's probably a good area to monitor. Can the market get above that or not? And if it can, obviously we're good to go to the upside. Here's the 10-minute on that, and you can see here that the time we spent below it was a pretty good length of time. When I say below 58. So taking a look at the crude here. Now we'd had a couple days sideways action, as you can see right here. So sideways here, just like we got sideways here. Let's look for a vertical. We did get a bit of a vertical move today, and you can see that we now have a very, very tiny gap here, just 3 ticks, and that was off of the recent buying gap that we had that then turned into a selling gap today with the lower opening and closed it for all but 3 ticks. So, we're going sideways here, and we really need to get and hold above this 54.09 area. Because I think once we do that, then we can go back up here and test in here. And then, of course, our main support is right here at 45. So, that's the lay of the land right now. We're kind of in the middle of it. It seems to want to go up more than down, in my opinion. After all, we have come up off of the lows in this market for, 2 months here. So it's, it's doing fairly well. So we take a look here at the profiles, and you can see that we had the lower opening, we had the range extension up, almost closed the gap, and we were not able to hold below, which I think is an interesting thing. We've talked about this before. We did have overlapping values here with the high volume here. It did get below, it touched into the group overlay value area low here. Then we had another one in here, hit the high volume today and moved up. I did have some range extension and closed just at the top, but in value. So I think it's okay, still on the upside, but I think we kind of need to monitor this, but it's still looking more up than down. We had a little bit of selling here just for very, very late in the day. Here's where that gap opening was, and it sort of staggered its way up, up and down, up and down, up and down, stair-stepping, whatever. But good support in here at 52.62, and then down here, it was a 50. I forget the number, it's on the DMA, just below 52.40. So I think the market's got some half-decent support in here, and I am expecting that that gap to get filled and then, come on up here, test into this value where it was in here in the 53.30.40 area is kind of the next main target, and then I would say the next one up here, roughly at 53.55. When you're taking a look at this, I mean, we obviously had follow through on the buying. We had no selling at all today until the last few minutes. So buying in here, tested the low. We had that one selling bar there. Another selling bar here was a level 1. It did have a bit of follow through, but just came back into where this first area, because this is a vertical, first bar was a vertical, right? So that's containment there. Then we come down, we test it into the midpoint of it, and then turn right around and have another leg up. So we've got, some, sideways movement here. You can shift that over if you want into here. We got support here. Then it goes up, makes a new high. So this is the support here. It was a little bit tricky to get on a trade on this guy today, though. You kind of had to be playing for the longer run, if you will, in that if the market did come down to a support where it had been bought, then you can go ahead and get in. Like in this area in here, buying in here would take you offside. Buying it in here took you a little offside. Buying it in here, maybe in here it would be okay. But when a market has follow through with these green bars, it's kind of hard to trade against it, in my view, on an intraday basis. So we take a look here at the gold. Here's the gold here. A bullish development today with a gap open, and we've come right up the dotted line here, the dash line, 1219.20. That's the midpoint of the sell-off post-election. So all the way down to here, and then this is the midpoint. So we did get up to it last week, very close to it, got up a little closer to it today, and we've got the buying gap. So I think this market is looking good and is on its way to overtake 1920, on its way up to 3280 in my view. So you can see here, the other thing I like about this is when the market did dip down, we were talking about this on Friday, is that I was suggesting the best trade would be to dip into this gap area and get rejected. And, it doesn't always happen like we think, but it did this time. It did dip down into there after the initial balance, which you can see here, low of the initial balance here, went up and made new highs and a fairly positive close. So I think this is good for that market. And as you can see, it also worked its way through the two-day overlay that we had right in here, which can sometimes be a stumbling block. And I suppose you could say it was early because that's what's the high of the initial balance range before it came down and then turned on higher. So, and we closed right at the high of it here. So I think this market is still good to go. I like it to the upside. You can see it here, the initial sell-off that we had. We always like to see this, at least I do, in an intraday up auction, and then you have a gap open higher. You're looking for rejection of selling, or if you think that the selling is really coming in strong, then you can trade on that short side, but you've got to be nimble. Well, we did have the high velocity move here, as we said, starts an intraday auction, so we start the intraday auction here. We do have follow through from it here. We have another leg down with these pair of magentas, but no follow through, and we did not close the gap. So two signs there of exhaustion and weakness on the part of the sell side, not being able to close the gap, and then getting price immediately, or not immediately, but very soon after the very aggressive selling came in. The very aggressive selling had no follow through. You start to trade above it here. That's your first sign. And then, of course, the second sign right in here when it's trading above where this high velocity move started from. And the base on that is right around here. So that's basically an area that we want to keep our eye on overnight at 1214.5 as good support. So it gives a good opportunity to get on the long side when it broke from here, or when it came down and dipped into these areas in here later on in the day. So there's a look at the markets for today. A few ideas, hopefully heading into tomorrow. Thanks, and we'll see you tomorrow.